Tantor Audio, a division of Recorded Books, presents The Trusted Advisor, 20th Anniversary Edition, by David H. Maister, Charles H. Green, and Robert M. Galford. Narrated by B.J. Harrison. Publisher's Note: in this audio edition, you'll hear references to visual elements present in the print and ebook formats of the book. Foreword to the 20th Anniversary Edition. Way back in 1995, Rob and Charlie were called into Deloitte to work on a large executive education program. The night before the first session, the head of the program, John Barch, said he had a half-hour open and asked the two if they could throw together some thoughts on the idea of a trusted advisor. They quickly agreed, did so, and it went well. The client asked if they could do it again for the next session, and see if you can make it an hour. Next time, it became 2 hours. One of the attendees suggested, "I think you may have a book here." Rob and Charlie realized he was right, and began to think about organizing their insights. Initially, publishers and agents weren't keen on the idea. The reigning paradigm business book of the time was Good to Great, which was loaded with data. This was more of a wisdom book. Then Rob met David. David had already published 9 books, 3 of which were on professional service topics, and said, "I'm working on basically the same idea. Let's join forces." David connected us with his publisher, Simon & Schuster, and we were in business. The book was thus less intentional than fortuitous. David had focused on professional services, and the advisory component of that business represented an opportunity for him to explore. For Charlie and Rob, coming out of 20 years of consulting and professional services experience, the opportunity to share learnings and to write a first book was enticing. Looking back, none of us would describe a 3-author approach to book writing as easy, but it did offer the benefits of more and richer examples, and of forcing us to vet ideas with each other. Still, if it hadn't been for John Barch, if it hadn't been for Rob and David bumping into each other, if it hadn't been for any number of events, this book would not have happened. Perhaps someone else would have written it. After all, the term trusted advisor was in common parlance, was already being used in ad copy, and was well beyond the point of being copyrightable. Nonetheless, we were confident that this was one of those intuitively attractive phrases that no one had bothered to take seriously enough to rigorously explore the whys and hows that made it so powerful. Fortuitous it may have been, but we did have some shared views of what we wanted the book to be. Above all, we wanted it to be rooted in common sense, more grounded in practice than in theory. Our heavy focus on lists, David's idea, turned out to be one of the more attractive components of the book, as many later told us. The most important part of the book turned out to be the trust equation, a format inspired by an earlier consulting firm, but which we populated with our richer content. The idea of describing a soft concept using the language of simple mathematics turned out to be quite appealing to our audience. To oversimplify, the most common reaction to the book was, "I kind of knew or believed much of this already, but I've never seen it put together so well. It all just makes sense. It made me wonder why I wasn't doing this all before, and gave me the roadmap to start doing it." But there was a range of reactions. One CEO told us, "You have transformed this organization." Many people have commented that the book helped them navigate personal relationships outside of business. Many more have found it useful to create alignment around customer-facing people, simply by creating a shared language and culture. Still more have stated variations on the theme of, "The book helped me shift the way I think about my client relationships and the way I interact with my clients." People highlight a greater willingness to listen, an understanding of the several ways in which they can increase their trustworthiness, changes in the way they approach business development, and developing a more patient, outside-looking-in perspective on what their clients are thinking. All of these are, of course, gratifying to us. Fast forward 20 years, and several 100,000 copies later, we realized we had latched onto something truly special. We also realized that the world has changed considerably since we first put pen to paper. We were reminded of Jorge Luis Borges' famous short story that describes the efforts of a 20th century author to write the world's greatest book. Considering Cervantes' Don Quixote to be the world's greatest book, he sets out to rewrite Don Quixote, exactly, word for word. However, once having written it, some 4 centuries after the original, he realizes that historical context renders everything different to the modern reader. Hence, his Don Quixote was not the same as the original, and so he had failed to write the world's greatest book. At the risk of comparing ourselves with authorial nobility, neither is The Trusted Advisor the same book we wrote 20 years ago. The context has changed. In particular, digital has happened, with effects ranging from trivial to profound. By way of context, when The Trusted Advisor came out in 2000, Mark Zuckerberg had not yet entered college, where he would start Facebook in his Harvard dorm 4 years later. A small company named Google had been founded just 2 years before. The first iPhone lay 7 years in the future. To say that the digital revolution has fundamentally changed business would be the understatement of several decades. To list just a few examples, much more information is available and used in the course of business relationships. In particular, each party to any business interaction is significantly smarter at earlier stages of interaction because of the ubiquity of available information. This affects relationship development, decision-making processes, and the dynamics of influence. Communications have shifted radically from phones, voicemail, faxes, and paper to all manner of digital vehicles. Big data, search, AI, and cloud computing have transformed sales and marketing, advertising, and buying processes. Tech itself has burgeoned into a massive industry, creating new clients and new advisors. Social media have affected nearly every aspect of business, to say nothing of life itself. Every one of those examples has potential implications for the idea of a trusted advisor. We toyed with the idea of a separate chapter specifically to address things digital, but ended up embedding these issues throughout the original structure. That decision reflects our belief that while digital is pervasive, it does not fundamentally alter the basics and dynamics of personal trust. The challenge is not to adapt trust to digital, but to adapt digital to trust. But digital effects are not the only way in which the context is shifted. Our audience has also changed. We originally wrote specifically for consultants, lawyers, accountants, and other advisory professional services. Today, advisory roles in business are widespread outside the locus of traditional professional services. For example, what used to be called tech support has morphed into far larger, strategically relevant business units. Entirely new organizational units like customer success have become ubiquitous. Those who work in the field of team and managerial dynamics have discovered that trusted advisor relationships have a lot to say about mentors, coaches, people, and leadership development. Coaches and financial advisors have found the book and found it to be useful. We are gratified, of course, to have found new audiences, but it makes us wonder how many potential new readers have yet to discover the book. As a result, we've included examples from all of those fields, and, where useful, adapted the language to make it more obviously applicable to them. The nature of business relationships has also changed. 20 years ago, hierarchical models of organization and leadership still held sway, affecting the dynamics between parties. Today, horizontal business relationships are far more the rule, both within and across organizations. Leadership is less a matter of competence and charisma, and more a function of the ability to influence. And since the ability to influence is at the heart of the advisor part of trusted advisor, the shift from hierarchical to horizontal relationships makes the book even more relevant. The demographics of readers have also changed. A typical reader of the original book in 2000 might have been 35 years old, likely male, born in 1965. A typical reader in 2020 may be closer to 30 years old, born in 1990, with readership much more gender-balanced, the latter point reflecting gains made in the professional services industry itself. That's a 25-year gap, a generation, and a culturally significant one. Original readers knew John, Paul, George, and Ringo as part of their life. For readers today, the Beatles are literally historical figures. Given all those changes, we are gratified that the book has done as well as it has. Sales have remained remarkably constant over 2 decades, due in part, we suspect, to the broadening audience, and we believe it can do better as we more specifically address them. Also, the book is particularly relevant for the middle part of a professional's career, which suggests the relevant audience is constantly being refreshed. More than one reader told us that they came to the book through the recommendation of a parent who had encountered it at a similar point in their own career. As well, when we floated the idea of this new addition to readers, they told us clearly that if we were to update the book, it had to speak to a new generation in that generation's terms. We agreed. That meant from things like getting rid of an old chapter on Lieutenant Columbo, if you have to ask, and references to faxes, again, to revising pronouns, and many points in between, like taking care to explain some points differently, while adding more on some issues and less on others. It wasn't until we started the job that we recognized yet another change, this one in the understanding of the very word trust itself. 20 years ago, trust, in the business context, generally referred to interpersonal trust, including the personal relationship between advisor and client. Interpersonal trust, however, is not the only kind of trust that exists. In particular, there is institutional trust, the kind of trust referred to when we say things like, "I trust Apple more than Facebook," or "Trust in the criminal justice system has declined." In the current business and general environment, institutional trust is more frequently discussed than it was 20 years ago. More of our clients are now asking, how can our company become more trusted? In using trust this way, the word begins to overlap with terms like branding or reputation. We also increasingly find the word trust used with issues of data privacy and security. The ultimate example might be Forrester Research's zero trust model for network security. To oversimplify, it suggests that the most trustworthy digital network is one that has zero reliance on personal trust, because personal trust implies risk, and the intent is to eliminate risk. Since trust by all definitions implies risk-taking, this apparent contradiction just highlights the multi-layered meanings of the word in common usage today. All this linguistic variation suggests the need for us to be more precise about what we mean by the word trust. To be clear, this book is primarily about interpersonal trust, not institutional trust. The fact that interpersonal trust nowadays occupies proportionately less space in public or business dialogue does not mean its importance has diminished. If anything, we argue, the opposite is true. It is tempting to think that the need for interpersonal trust is diminished by the reduction in the time we spend in face-to-face communications, by automated processes, or by putting information on websites as opposed to communicating it personally. But the human need to deal with a human counterpart at some point in a business relationship is undiminished. If we are seeking advice, if we are going to make a significant commitment to another entity, we want a counterparty that on some level we know in order to have trust. We want accountability. We want to know who is behind the relationship. We want names. We want to put faces, depth, and values to those names. If there are fewer personal interactions, then the weight we place on the remaining interactions becomes even greater. In this way, the importance of interpersonal trust is actually heightened. Another definitional point is useful. Since 2000, there has been an explosion of research and business literature on trust. Much of it treats trust as a thing in itself, without revealing much about how trust is created. This results in a very practical form of confusion. Here is the problem. If trust is down, whether for a personal or institutional relationship, then does the problem lie in reduced trustworthiness of one party, or does it lie in reduced willingness to trust by the other party? Simply observing the end result, lower trust, obscures the root of the problem, and therefore the practical solutions to that problem. For example, if we see a statement like, "Trust in banking is down," no matter how rigorous the statistical study may be, it begs a fundamental question. Is trust in banking down because A, banks have become less trustworthy, or B, because people have come to trust banks less? If you see a particular bank, mortgage lender, or financial firm frequently in the news over a matter of years for bad sales practices, odds are good you're seeing evidence of a failure of trustworthiness. But consider another case. In the United States, the incidence of violent crime has been measurably down over the last 2 decades. At the same time, fear of violent crime has just as measurably increased. That is a problem of perception, an unwillingness to trust. If all we measure is trust, then we have no practical way of addressing the problem. Is it the propensity to trust on the part of the truster, or is it the trustworthiness of the trustee? Since our aim was to write a book that is above all practical, this is an important point. So here are our definitions, distinguishing trust, trustworthiness, and trusting. Trust is one kind of relationship between 2 persons. Trust increases when one partner, the truster, takes a risk by trusting the other, and the other party, the trustee, proves themselves to be trustworthy. Aspiring trusted advisors are often tempted to focus solely on being trustworthy and not on trusting. This is a mistake. Just as in the sales world, aggressively waiting for the phone to ring is no strategy, so it is with trust. If you want to build trust, you must learn to play the proactive, risk-taking role of truster, as well as that of trustee. As we look back on the first 20 years of this book's life, and dare to think about the next 20, one thing above all seems clear to us. As the song says, the fundamental things apply as time goes by. Technology changes. Markets and organizations change. Demographics, business roles, and communications media change. What stays constant are human dynamics, including the dynamics of trust. We have tried to separate the signal from the noise, confident that the signal remains strong. We are grateful to previous readers and hope you may enjoy a look anew, along with people who are reading this book for the first time. David H. Maister, Boston, Massachusetts. Charles H. Green, Boca Raton, Florida. Robert M. Galford, Concord, Massachusetts. Introduction. We wrote this book because, in the course of our careers as consultants and as advisors to other professionals, we have made every mistake we describe in the book and broken every piece of advice it contains. Whatever wisdom this book contains has been learned the hard way. Our formal education served us well, but nothing in it prepared us for the real world of trying to serve clients effectively. Along the way, we learned that becoming a good advisor takes more than having good advice to offer. There are additional skills involved, one that no one ever teaches you, that are critical to your success. Most important, we learned that you don't get the chance to employ advisory skills until you can get someone to trust you enough to share their problems with you. No one ever taught us how to do that either, yet we had to learn it, somehow. For several years, Rob Galford and Charlie Green had been conducting workshops, seminars, and training programs for some of the world's most prominent professional firms, under the title of Being a Trusted Advisor. Meanwhile, David Maister was consulting and writing about professionalism, advice-giving, client relationships, and other related topics. We met when we found ourselves presenting at the same conference and realized that, separately, we each had a piece of the puzzle. Together, we think we have a total picture to present. The theme of this book is that the key to professional success is not just technical mastery of one's discipline, which is of course essential, but also the ability to work with clients in such a way as to earn their trust and gain their confidence. We therefore address this book to both would-be advisors and to existing advisors who seek to create trust in their business relationships. We have written it mostly for individuals working in the advisory professions: consulting, accounting, law, engineering, public relations, talent, insurance brokerage, investment banking, architecture, and similar activities. We have written it that way because that is the world we know. However, we hope that professionals working inside corporations and other organizations who also have clients and projects will find this book relevant to their work. Trust takes place between two individuals. It can, of course, take place inside organizations, within teams, and in other group settings. But we have chosen in this book to focus on the primary aspect of trust. that which occurs between two individuals, an advisor serving a client. Ambitious professionals invest tremendous energy in improving business skills, including sharpening their specific expertise, gaining experience, broadening their knowledge, and networking, all requiring hard work. However, seldom do they give enough thought to creating trust relationships with clients, and little guidance is provided by their firms on how to accomplish this. Many professionals do not know how to think about or examine trust relationships. Unfortunately, there are many signs that trust is scarce. With ever-increasing frequency, clients conduct a microscopic examination of their professional providers' bills, challenging expenses, questioning how projects were staffed and how much time various tasks required. Clients often exclude lawyers, accountants, consultants, and other professionals from early stages of discussions because their conception of the professional's role is too narrow. Detailed reporting from professionals is often demanded so that the clients can monitor their activity. What a change this represents! There was a time when clients trusted professionals automatically, based solely upon their honorable calling. Sound character and reputation were assumed, and business was conducted with confidence, bound by a handshake. Great firms and institutions were born and built on this natural expectation of trust. Although that world may be gone, the need for trust has not disappeared. What has taken its place is the necessity to earn trust and maintain it throughout a professional's career. Each of us has run numerous seminars and workshops with a wide variety of professionals on various aspects of dealing with clients. Among the most common questions we receive at these meetings are: 1. How can I get access to my clients more often? 2. How can I persuade my client to introduce me to others in their organization? 3. How can I cross-sell? 4. How can I avoid being typecast, labeled as a specialist only in my main discipline? 5. What do I do about not being an expert in related fields? 6. How do I get clients less focused on price? 7. How do I get clients to play fairly with me? The answers to these questions, and many similar ones, have the same basis. You've got to earn your clients' trust. Without that, none of these ambitions can be realized. All these questions require the client to either do something for you or to decide to give you what you want. We believe that a client is most likely to give you what you want if he or she trusts you. We believe that earning trust is an activity that can be managed and improved without trivializing or mechanizing the advisory relationship. In this book, we provide a new understanding of the importance and potential of trust relationships with clients and show how trust can be employed to achieve a wide range of rewards. We examine trust as a process which has beginnings and endings, which can be derailed and encouraged, and which takes place across time and experience. We analyze the key components of trust and the process by which trust evolves in a relationship. We also explore the core capabilities that are exhibited by the trusted advisor, map the trust development process, and reveal the mindsets and behaviors that must be developed to successfully navigate the process. We help you determine the level of trust in your current relationship and show you how to be more worthy of trust and how to make that worthiness manifest to your clients. How to use this book.
Sample complete. Ready to continue?